Join the conversation.
Join the conversation.
You're with Cape Talk.
Good to have you with us. An awful lot of conversations that we're having this morning, some of them very intentional, others inadvertently started. One of them around nudity and nakedness and how you feel about it in yourself and others. And it was sparked quite inadvertently by coming into the studio early this morning to throw forward to the show with Leicester. And as I looked out of one of the windows here in studio, looked across to some apartments across the way and saw very happy looking guy, well, not that happy looking. Careful, SJ, it's still the morning. A very happy looking guy um, on his balcony, completely starkers, just enjoying the sun, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying this beautiful morning. And I thought, good for you. I don't know that Chris Smith necessarily wants to be on the back of this talk, but so he finds himself. Always good to have the naked scientist, Dr. Chris Smith, with us. Dr. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, sorry about the display this morning, SJ. I was just getting ready for the Naked Scientist. I thought I'd take a stroll on my balcony and look out the window, and there's all these presenters staring at me. But there we go. Yeah, I'm very good. How are you?
Taking your moniker very literally. I'm very, very well. I'm very, very well indeed. All right, let's dive into it. This is a great first question that we've had, and we are heading into summer here in Cape Town, and the mosquitoes are going to torment me, but not my kids as much as it seems. It seems that I'm unfairly tormented. Somebody's asking here, why do some people attract mosquitoes more than others?
Yep.
Or is it our imagination?
No,
Because I
it's
don't think it is.
definitely really a thing. And the attraction of a mosquito to a person is all down to what we smell like and how warm we are. Mosquitoes are really sensitive to carbon dioxide for a start. They detect it with their antennae, which are bedecked with lots of sensitive nerve endings that detect various molecules in the air, CO2 being one of them. It's wired straight up to the brain of the insect, and the mosquitoes fly backwards and forwards across the room, and they can resolve across their two antennae the concentrations of the gases they're smelling, so they can tell if there's a stronger concentration on one side than the other. That's where it's coming from, and they can home in on you. Now, some people produce more CO2, pregnant women, for example, and that's why pregnant women are much more vulnerable to malaria because they're more likely to be bitten, they're more likely to catch it. Some would argue they may also have a bigger surface area to catch it on. But also, mosquitoes can pick up on different molecules that we produce other than just CO2 and that we're warm. They can smell various things that come on our breath and also things that we exude through our skin. Some of those molecules are really attractive to mosquitoes. Other molecules, though, it turns out, deter mosquitoes. And researchers in a number of labs, including one at Rothamsted Research in the UK, they've actually put people in chambers where they can collect all of the volatile molecules coming off of a person's body, and you then feed the gases down a tube which divides like a letter T. And you put mosquitoes, or give them the option, which of these two arms do you want to go down, from a person who is in one of the chambers or another of the chamber, and you can demonstrate that some people do seem to be producing smells that are more attractive and some are producing smells that are more repugnant to mosquitoes. And it's the luck of the draw. Some people happen to produce a cocktail of chemicals that mosquitoes find really, really attractive. Others smell less attractive to a mosquito, and others smell downright awful to a mosquito, and the mosquitoes make their choice accordingly. So you may well taste and smell absolutely fab to a mozzie, your kids, not so much.
Okay, thanks very much indeed for that. Zuki's on the line. Zuki, hello. What would you like to ask Dr. Chris or comment?
Okay, hi, good morning. Hi, morning, Dr. Chris. Okay, so I'm aware of the thermic effect of food, and obviously I know about spicy food making you hot. But I don't know if this happens to anyone else. Why is it that when I eat something really sour, like a lemon or something with tartaric acid, I immediately get hot and I start sweating? How does that happen?
Ooh.
That
I've not
is a
heard
good
anyone say that
question.
one before. The spiciness, yes. But maybe if you're getting that reaction, it must be a similar sort of mechanism. The reason that we have that visceral reaction to food that's spicy, let's look at that first, is because there is a molecule in spicy food called capsaicin, which activates the class of nerve endings that detect pain and temperature. And they activate those nerve endings without actually any damage having to happen to the tissue. So it fools that part of the body into thinking there must be damage going on. And you infer this area is being burned, it's very hot. What effect does that have? Well, in the same way as if I reached out and touched a hot surface, I would snatch my hand away. Well, it produces the same physiological chemical snatching your hand away effect viscerally through your body. So you start to say, well, if I'm getting very hot, I need to sweat and cool down. So it triggers reflexes that enable you to offset the effect of what the body thinks is a heat overdose. So if you're getting a reaction, an exaggerated reaction to bitter compounds, it's possible that you're invoking the same sorts of mechanisms. It's part of your sympathetic nervous system being activated. So it must be fooling your body into thinking that there's damage to tissue going on, or that it's in some way activating the nerve pathways that would signal pain and temperature. So you then get that exaggerated, I need to cool down, that's why I'm going to start sweating, or I'm going to feel very hot and flushed. It's that same response. So maybe in you, the nerves are wired up slightly differently, so they have that response, or you're a bit more sensitive to the chemicals that those nerve cells would detect anyway, so you get that reaction. Because not everyone's nervous system is wired up identically, and not everyone's nervous system has the ability to detect all the chemicals in the environment around us, especially in taste and smells, identically between us. We're all biochemically slightly different. That's why we all look slightly different. And that may be why in you're getting that exaggerated reaction. But I've not heard anyone say they have that before. But I tell you what, I'll go and have a look and see if there's any documented evidence of people having that reaction to bitter compounds in things like limes.
Interesting, Zuki. Really interesting. A question here about loss of smell and taste. Let's take a listen.
I've been struggling with the loss of smell and taste now for the last 20 years, and I had my nasal polyps removed, then enlarged nasal polyps, and it helped for a year. Now it's back to the nasal polyps that are blocking the senses. And I'd like to know, what is the cause of these nasal polyps that forms in my nose? It's becoming such a problem, especially winter time. I have a really big problem breathing. So yeah, maybe get some advice there by the scientists. Thank you.
Good morning.
All right, a question about
Mm.
nasal polyps and loss of smell and taste.
Well, a lot of what we describe as taste is actually smell, which is why it may confuse people to think, why is the conversation revolving around the nose and we're talking about taste? Well, we only detect a handful of different substances with our tongues. And most of what we call taste is going on in our noses, actually. But because we present the taste at the same time as we're smelling things, the brain interprets taste as smell. So most of what we are tasting is actually smells coming off of what we've put in our mouth, going up to the back of our nose and activating the smell system. And we say, oh, that tastes nice, but in fact, you're smelling your food. You can prove this to yourself if you hold your nose and put something in your mouth. Take something strongly flavoured or something you really hate eating. When I was little, for me, it used to be Brussels sprouts. I love them now, but I absolutely hated them. They were the devil's vegetable when I was little. Hold your nose, put them in your mouth. You can't taste them. And this is because you are preventing the airflow up your nose, and therefore the molecules in your mouth are not able to access easily the smelling parts at the top of your nose, so you can't taste the nasty thing you've put in your mouth. You can also do it with medicine that you find unpleasant to take. If you don't like the taste, hold your nose. Works a treat. So how is the smell system working then to give us taste and smell? Well, molecules which are coming off of the food we put in our mouth, especially because the mouth is warm, it drives off volatile chemicals from the food. Those flavour molecules go up to the top of the nose, at the top of literally the top of your nose, where your skull separates your nasal cavity from your brain. There is a perforated bone structure there called the cribriform plate, and thin nerve endings come through there and connect a sheet of tissue called the olfactory epithelium to the olfactory nerve on the underside of your brain. And if you damage the nerve endings on that olfactory epithelium, you can't smell. If you have a brain injury which tears the nerve endings apart, so the connection is broken, you can't smell. And if you have a problem with the nerve in the brain itself, which some people do, there's a condition called Kallmann syndrome, for example, you also have no smelling pathway. Now, the difference is some of those things are acquired Some of them, you have got them for life and from the get-go. So if you have a cold or a virus, or as has been alluded to, polyps in your nose, these are growths. They're benign growths, which can occur in a range of places, but when they do, they can affect the way the air flows up the nose. And just as holding your nose stops you tasting Brussels sprouts if you're Chris Smith and you're 8, if you have polyps in your nose, it can occlude the flow of air up the nose, and therefore it's like holding your nose. So it affects your ability to smell and taste things. But if you've had a head injury or you have got a viral infection, these can damage the nerve cells, either temporarily or in some cases permanently, and that will also affect your ability to smell and, for all the reasons I've just outlined, taste your food. Can it be reversed? Well, as been alluded to, if you have these polyps, an ear, nose, and throat surgeon can look up the nose, they can see them, and they can do surgery to shave them off. The problem is they can come back. They frequently do, and therefore you might need to operate again. But in some people, this never happens. In some people, it happens to a greater extent than others. Another one to think about is allergy, because if we're wandering around with a blocked up nose because of an allergy, this will also have the effect of occluding airflow, and that will also affect your ability to smell and taste things. So think about reversible causes before you ask a surgeon to reach for a scalpel, because they'll try the simple, non-invasive things first, and if that doesn't work, and there are polyps there that can be removed, then they may have to intervene surgically.
Sure, that's so interesting about most of what we think we're tasting, we're actually smelling. Fascinating. All right, Michelle has also sent in a voice note about spicy food. Let's take a listen.
When I eat super spicy food, very, very hot spicy food, I get an inner ear itch that you just can't get to. It is so itchy. And I've always wondered why that could be.
I get that.
I'm also wondering now.
I get that. Also, if you get allergies, sometimes if you get a bit of hay fever, you can get an itch on the inside of your ear you just can't scratch, and you stick your finger in your external ear canal and wiggle it up and down, and it just about gives you a little bit of relief, but it's still as though you can't quite get inside your ear to give it a scratch. And this is because the inner ear is connected to your middle ear, which is a cavity where there are 3 tiny bones that relay the vibrations from your eardrum, which is the bit, if you look down your ear canal, you can see your eardrum. That vibrates, and the bones in the middle ear cavity convey those vibrations to your inner ear. The bones are sitting in that middle ear cavity, and to equalize the pressure across your eardrum, there is a connection, a canal called the eustachian tube, that goes from that middle ear cavity back to your nasal cavity. And the nerve supply to that is the same as the nerve supply to the ear. And this means that if you irritate or activate nerves in your mouth and nasal area, sometimes, because you don't need to know exactly what you're touching along inner parts of your body you can't get to, you just need to know something's up there. The nervous system has a fairly large receptive field in that area. In the same way that if you reach out and put your finger in your pocket, you can find a coin and identify it just by touching the surface of the coin. You couldn't do that with the skin on your back, for example, because you can touch your back over a huge area and you don't know exactly where you're touching yourself. The receptive field is enormous. The discriminatory ability of that patch of skin is very, very poor because it doesn't need to be accurate. Similarly, stimulation to one bit of the nervous system in one part of the nose and throat is referred over a big area of territory. And this includes the innervation into your middle ear. So when you have irritation or stimulation in one place, you can feel it over a much bigger zone. And in some people, it just refers to the middle ear, which is why you get that itch sensation or a stinging sensation or a hot sensation in that particular territory. And it just so happens in you that the spiciness is activating the pathways that also infer itchiness, and you're feeling that referred to your inner and middle ear, when in fact it's not. It's all going on in your nose and throat.
We've had a question about the latest flu. Now, I got a message from a friend of mine in Joburg in the week to say that she has just done a test and she's tested positive for COVID. I didn't even know people were still testing for COVID these days, but she's got COVID. And we had a question in about flu and whether perhaps it is a variant of COVID. Let's take a listen.
Good morning. This recent flu, influenza that people had recently, which I also had, you know, it felt more like COVID. Would there still be a variance of COVID still around? And because the reason I'm asking is because many people have had the symptoms, and even today would have. I had flu 2 weeks ago. Now I can't taste or I can't smell. With me, I have had the same heavy uh, uh, mucus that I had the time I had flu. Is there still a variance lurking around of COVID?
That is a
Right.
great
Mm.
question. Amy was just producer Amy was just saying that she was deathly ill the other day, and I've also heard other people saying that they've had this really terrible bout of flu that has felt to them like COVID. So, is it still around? Is it likely to still be to be a variant, Chris?
We've had flus circulating in the northern hemisphere last winter, southern hemisphere just coming out of its flu season now. So there are certainly flus circulating because we've been getting people coming back from their holidays and their travels, bringing flu back with them to the UK because we're diagnosing in our laboratory. We're even seeing cases in summer, which we very rarely do. So it shows there has been quite a lot of flu activity this year, but there's also a huge amount of COVID activity going on at the moment now as well. There's a variant called XTG and a variant of that variant called XTG3, and they appear to be causing a lot of cases. And they also are doing that because people haven't had COVID lately very much. It's been down in the lower levels of circulation, so people's immunity has worn off a bit. It's also a bit different in terms of its appearance to the immune system, so it's spreading a bit better. So we're seeing a lot of COVID cases. So the answer is it could be either flu or a coronavirus infection. Now, the interesting thing that you say is that smell and taste went awry, and that's a classic feature of these coronaviruses. So it may well be you had COVID, or if you were really unlucky, you could have had COVID and flu, because we've been detecting people who sometimes catch both. So if you felt really, really washed out, it could have been you actually managed to unluckily catch both. But either are circulating at the moment, and there is a lot of coronavirus infection around. So it could well be that you picked up that new variant, and that's what's laid you low.
I love this next question. What's actually happening in our brain when we get a gut feeling? Is it superstition or something real? That is a great question.
No, it's absolutely real. And I think the reason that we ascribe instinct to our guts is as follows. When we experience profound stress or nerves, you get butterflies in your stomach. Why do you get a sensation of butterflies in your stomach? Because when you become very stressed, you activate your sympathetic autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight reaction. It puts your blood pressure up, it puts your heart rate up, it opens up your eye pupils so you can see far, get lots of light in, but it does make your vision a bit blurry close up. It also makes you breathe very hard, so you might become a bit lightheaded, but breathing hard means lots of oxygen in, ready to fight or run away. And critically, it deactivates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the motor drive to your guts. So when you get that sinking feeling, it's because you're turning off all of your intestines. Why? Because you don't want to be sending resources like blood supply to digest dinner when you need to be running away. You want to turn all that off. When you turn it off, all the muscles relax and you get that sinking sensation. That's the butterflies in your stomach. So people tend to say, I feel this gut instinct, something's up or something's wrong. That's part of it. The other part of it is that there are a lot of vibration sensors in your intestines and in your viscera. So we tend to feel very low frequency sounds in our abdomens. Now, why would we feel that and why would we need to feel that? Well, it might, for instance, signal that there's a tidal wave coming or an earthquake in the distance or a volcano or some animal that produces very low frequency sounds that might be planning to make us dinner. Those will be picked up by the vibration sensors in your viscera, in your mesentery, and that also will produce sensations or instinctive feelings of concern or worry or nervousness. And so I think bringing all that together, that's why we tend to talk about having a gut instinct, feeling that something's not quite right. My gut says I should be wary. And that's probably where it comes from.
That is fascinating. My gut tells me we've run out of time, sadly. Dr. Chris, good to have you with us back next week
See you soon.
for another serving of The Naked Scientist.
Join the conversation.
Join the conversation.
You're with Cape Talk.